The Cartel Killers, brutal beheadings in the drug wars. The ongoing Mexican drug wars have claimed countless lives over the past few decades, with violence escalating to terrifying levels as rival drug cartels vie for control over territories, drug routes, and power. Among the most horrific acts perpetrated during these drug wars are the brutal beheadings carried out by cartel members to send chilling messages to rivals and law enforcement. These acts of extreme violence are designed to instill fear and assert dominance, often leaving entire communities terrorized. One of the most notorious periods of cartel violence involving beheadings occurred during the height of the drug war in the mid-2000s, but these gruesome killings continue to this day. This extreme form of violence is often associated with some of Mexico's most dangerous cartels, including the Zetas, the Sinaloa Cartel, and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJ&G. The rise of beheadings in cartel warfare. Beheadings have been used as a grisly method of execution in cartel conflicts since the early 2000s, but the violence escalated significantly when the Zetas cartel, originally composed of ex-military personnel, began using this technique to intimidate their enemies and terrify the public. The Zetas' militaristic background gave them the expertise to carry out highly orchestrated killings, and beheadings became a hallmark of their brutality. At first, the beheadings were used as a way to target rival cartel members. Over time, however, they began to be inflicted on anyone who stood in the way of the cartels: police officers, journalists, government officials, and even innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. This escalation of violence was often recorded and shared online or left as a public spectacle in streets, with decapitated bodies and heads displayed prominently to strike fear into the hearts of those who opposed the cartels. Gruesome displays of violence. One of the most infamous examples of cartel beheadings occurred in 2006, when the Zetas cartel, vying for control over the Gulf Cartel, executed 4 members of the rival gang in Acapulco, Guerrero. Their severed heads were left on display outside the courthouse, accompanied by a note warning enemies that they would suffer the same fate if they opposed the Zetas. The brutality did not stop there. The Sinaloa cartel, led by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, and the Jalisco New Generation cartel soon adopted similar tactics, contributing to the escalating violence. In 2011, members of the Knights Templar cartel left 49 decapitated bodies in San Fernando, Tamaulipas, a horrific spectacle meant to send a message to both law enforcement and rival factions. In many cases, the cartels filmed these executions and posted the videos on social media, where they circulated widely, further amplifying the fear and terror among the population. These videos would often show captives pleading for their lives before being killed in the most brutal ways imaginable. Terrorizing civilians and law enforcement. Beheadings were no longer just a tool of inter-cartel warfare, they became a method of controlling entire communities. The cartels targeted anyone they deemed a threat to their operations, including government officials and police officers who refused to cooperate, or who were actively trying to disrupt cartel activities. Journalists were also common targets, as many reporters who dared to expose cartel violence or corruption faced the ultimate punishment. In one of the most shocking cases, Maria del Rosario Fuentes Rubio, a journalist who reported on cartel violence, was kidnapped and murdered in 2014 by the Gulf Cartel. Her killers posted a photo of her body and severed head on her own Twitter account as a gruesome warning to others. Civilians, too, were caught in the crossfire. In some cases, entire families were slaughtered and beheaded in acts of reprisal or as a show of force. Innocent people were abducted, held for ransom, and then killed, with their bodies dumped on highways or in mass graves, often mutilated or decapitated. The role of fear and intimidation. The purpose of these beheadings is not just to eliminate enemies but to generate terror and assert control over entire regions. The cartels use extreme violence to maintain their power, ensuring that local populations, law enforcement, and even the government are too frightened to oppose them. In areas controlled by cartels, communities often live in a constant state of fear, with everyone from local officials to small business owners forced to pay protection fees to avoid a gruesome death. Public beheadings, mutilations, and displays of corpses are intended to break the will of anyone who might stand against the cartels. These acts are meant to communicate one clear message: disobedience will not be tolerated, and those who oppose the cartel will meet the most violent and humiliating deaths possible. The cartel killers' brutal methods. The beheadings carried out by the cartels are often performed in a ritualistic and highly brutal manner. Victims are sometimes tortured for hours or even days before they are finally killed. Once beheaded, their heads are displayed in public places, often with notes or banners called narcomantas, warning others of the consequences of betrayal or defiance. These banners are written in language that underscores the cartel's dominance and power. Cartels also employ shock value by orchestrating mass executions. One of the most notorious mass beheadings occurred in 2011, when members of the Zetas beheaded 49 people and left their bodies on a highway in Cadereyta, Nuevo Leon. The bodies were dismembered, and the heads were displayed as a warning to the government and rival cartels. Such extreme violence, while barbaric, serves as an effective tool for the cartels to enforce their rule and keep the populace in a state of submission. The public nature of the violence ensures that the cartel's message is heard loud and clear across the region. The role of corruption and impunity. One of the reasons cartels have been able to commit these atrocities with relative impunity is the widespread corruption within law enforcement and the Mexican government. Many officials are either bought off or too afraid to act, knowing that standing up to the cartels could cost them their lives or the lives of their families. In some cases, law enforcement has been directly involved in cartel killings, either by turning a blind eye or actively participating in the violence. The inability of the government to curb cartel activity has allowed the cycle of violence to continue, with innocent civilians caught in the middle,